Oh, wow, guys. This is really embarrassing, but it looks like I wasn't live and Dustin and I were talking.
I
This is
didn't even
crazy.
notice it. I didn't
I
even
didn't
notice
know it because I didn't see the view count. I wanted to see how many people were out there. So I even had the countdown. This is wow. This is really bad,
it.
embarrassing. But all right, yeah, Dustin, I just wanted to say this. Yeah, thanks for coming on again. I appreciate it. You're one of the first ones to have me on when I was a really small channel, and you have a huge channel. So once again, thank you when you brought me on, and now I wanted to do the favor again and have you on. What's going on, man?
Absolutely. Yeah. Thanks very much for having me. I've been looking forward to this all weekend. Yeah. So this is awesome. Thank you.
Yeah. All right, let's look at some comments. We were talking before this
I know.
to
I know.
ourselves.
Maybe I should retell my story, but go ahead.
Yeah, so hashtag Rara knows it must have been the hanky panky. So I was responding to the fact that people, um, there's a comment that was deleted, and I said, "Hey, looks like this comment's deleted." So something was strange was going on. And then, what were you saying? Just the conversation we had to both of us, but it looks like other people were listening, but they weren't.
Yeah. So, and like I said, not trying to name drop, but I had made a video about Golden auctions, and Ken Golden actually reached out to me directly, and he's like, "Hey, are you deleting my comments? Because I'm trying to reply to people that are making comments on the video, and it's just not showing up. I don't see them." And I wasn't deleting the comments. I think that maybe he was trying to put links in to show certain things, or trying to show proof of something here and there, whatever. So I guess that just goes to show sometimes stuff just disappears or doesn't show up, and we don't know why.
Yeah, exactly. I asked Dakota, why are you deleting my comments when he had that podcast or interview the other day? So it wasn't him. It just looks like it's a YouTube issue. All right, let's go through some of the other comments before we start. Baker Boy, good evening. Baker Boy says, hanky panky time. You know it. As you know, my favorite phrase. Ryan McClanahan, what's going on? Evening, gents. Looking forward to some card talk tonight for sure. All right, let's go through some of the other comments. Brandon Ryan, crush your enemies, see them driven before you, and hear the lamentation of the women. All right.
That was a little dark, Brendan.
Yeah, indeed. BG Kimberling, you're here for the free food. Okay. John Williams, keeping it real in the Matrix. Yup, we're red pilling tonight. Baker,
Absolutely.
I watched Finance Dad when he first started his channel with in-law painting behind him. I don't
Yeah.
remember
So,
that.
so my mother-in-law is the one that does in my backdrop for my videos. I've got the paintings of the cards, the Jerry Rice rookie and the Jordan and all that, the Luca. And my mother-in-law made those for me. So that's why I think he's saying my in-law paintings. Yeah. So yeah, it was she's kind of a longtime artist. And I was like, is there any way you could make these? I think it'd be really cool. And this was, of course, a couple of years ago, and she was able to do it. So pretty cool.
There you go. All right, some other comments. Canton card collector. Sounds like hanky panky. Yup.
Yeah,
One time. Dustin aware of the hanky panky talk. Yeah, you're gonna see that a lot in my comment section. I guess
absolutely.
every
Hey,
everyone.
I watched the videos. I know all about the hanky panky stuff. I
Oh,
watch all
okay.
your
There you go. There you
videos.
go. All right, so let's get into some of the hanky panky talk. But over the past year, we've seen sports cards go down. You've talked about this. I've talked about this. So, what are you buying during this time right now?
It's actually kind of a weird time. So, not weird in a bad way, but it's in part because there's so many options right now because prices have come down a lot. So there are certain things that I'm looking at, but I'm looking at a variety of different things. But also, just with it being tax time and everything else, I had dog training to pay for, taxes to pay for. I had all these things. So I have not been buying as much over the last 30 days and probably over the next 30 days, not quite as much, but I'm kind of thinking of really kind of shoring it up for the national because I'm going to go to the national at the end of July. So my thought is kind of June, July, I'm doing some saving up until we get to the national and then see where we go from there. So the most recent card that I bought is a Marvel card. So it's not a
Oh,
PMG. It's not a
okay.
PMG. It is in the 2013 Fleer retro set. So it is the, one of the popular PMG sets, but where I've been looking is basically what are the rare inserts that are not PMGs that really maybe nobody's paying attention to. So like this card in particular, this Hulk, this set it's an insert set that's got an autograph at the top, and it's one out of 960 packs or 70 packs. And if the price points are nowhere even close to where PMGs are. So that I'm looking at stuff like that. And same with sports cards. I'm looking at all sorts of stuff.
Yeah, I mean, even though I have been bashing Marvel, it's usually the PMGs that have gone up and some of the influencers in particular, but I have been buying a few Iron Man cards. I mean, we watched a few of the Robert Downey Jr. movies, I don't know, from a decade ago. I didn't watch it at that time. And I thought to myself, okay, if Spider-Man cards just went up crazy because of the hype, then what's going to happen if they have an Iron Man movie, which I believe is going to happen in the next few years? So I don't know. I mean, I'm not too much into Marvel. I do like watching the movies from time to time, but I do believe that if you have it at a nice price point and not buying the hype, I think this could be, I mean, it could go up, especially with Steve Aoki just buying up cards like crazy.
And frankly, too, I'm more of a graded comic book guy than I am a Marvel card guy. So, like, if I was going to spend serious money on Marvel stuff, I would probably buy Silver Age comics, or Golden Age comics. But, not to say that I would never buy a PMG. It's just obviously the price points are just nowhere where I would touch it,
Oh, makes sense. All right, maybe some questions you could answer. BJ Kimberly, Dustin, why did you change your channel name?
So I started it with the personal finance dad just to keep it very general because, kind of similar to Raul, I talk about finance stuff, and I talk about card stuff, and I try to wrap all those things in together. It just turned out to where my channel turned into way more of a sports card channel. And with all of the stuff that, I'm looking at, I'm doing a podcast with Brad. I'm doing some different things to where from a branding standpoint, and then also just kind of how the YouTube algorithm works, with keywords. It's like, I kind of like the fact that I wasn't just another sports card channel. It was something different. So I think people might remember it because they're like, huh, he has a weird channel name. But then at the same time, it's like, well, but I probably should change it up to where it tells more of the story of this particular channel. And then in the future, if I want to do more of a finance news channel or something, then maybe I do the personal finance dad and I do a different channel and I'm talking about finance news, or I'm talking about finance topics, kind of like what you did with like AIH finance, that makes sense. And so that's where that was something I've been thinking about it for a while, and then just pulled the trigger on that, about a month ago to a couple months ago.
Indeed, and it's Charles Fuchs, aka Stacking Gems, a channel I definitely follow on Instagram.
I met him, good guy.
Yeah, he's a pretty chill dude. What up, guys? My favorite two peeps on finance and cards. Yup. And yup, I do like your Marvel cards though, even though I hate on Marvel at times.
Well, no, I think you're more of kind of like, you're not big on the hype for any particular thing. So if you feel like it's if it's inorganic or there's something weird, if there's hanky panky, if you will, then then you'll speak out on it. I don't think, and you tell me if I'm wrong, but I think it's not necessarily the Marvel. It's just more of how it's gone about,
how it's conducted. Yes, indeed. Alrighty. I was talking to you off air, and you're asking, what type of questions you're going to ask, and I said I wanted to do a similar format to what FD did with me when he brought me on, where we really didn't talk about the topics. Where I'm going to drop a phrase, and you're going to comment, and then I may respond, and I'll see what the other people in the chat say. All right. And this is our favorite topic of the week. You've talked about it. I've talked about it. Cornball content.
Yeah. All right. So I'm going first.
Yes, you go first, and then I'll respond.
I'm a big fan of all the different types of content. So for me, and if you know my channel, I literally put an iPhone on a $10, $20 tripod and I shoot. I don't have high production value. I may never have a studio with, half a dozen people working on it. Or, I like the fact that anybody can set up a podcast, set up a YouTube channel, set up any way that they want to. And whether it's considered cornball or it's considered something amazing. That's all. It's like beauty is in the eye of the beholder. Some people might think my channel is cornball and garbage, and other people think that it's great for any particular reason. And it could change. It could change any given day. It could be like today it was crap, tomorrow is actually pretty good. So I just think that the whole idea of, I guess judgment on content, I understand it. I mean, there's certain content I like better than others, but I like the fact that everybody's got a shot at it. Everyone's got a voice.
Okay, that's a good answer. I mean, I thought the reference that the particular individual was making regarding cornball comment was a shot at Jeff Wilson, in my opinion, and other individuals who have a large following. And some people either really like him, some people in between, some people hate him, right? We've seen this in the content space all over. And just my take on this is, it takes a lot of effort putting content out, whether it's positive, negative, or neutral. And everyone is entitled to their opinion, but if you're complaining about other individuals and not putting out that much content, then maybe you should be looking at yourself. I don't know if you agree with that, but that's just one of my.
Yeah, I'm kind of more of, if I look at something and I don't like it, I think you have to look inward and say, how I typically say, how can I do better? What could I do differently? As opposed to, the world stinks. I mean, look, life isn't fair. Life isn't
Right,
always going to be fair. It's
right,
like,
right.
so that's just my attitude. I think as far as Jeff Wilson goes, I wanted to give some defense to him, whether you like or dislike Jeff. And I mean, I've talked to him, I've met him before, but I'm not tight with Jeff Wilson. But I will say, though, he has done a good job of bringing a lot of people into the hobby. I think it's hard to dispute that given the size of his channel. And then also, he is part of the inspiration for me starting my channel as well. And I think for a lot of people, because they looked and they're like, okay, here's a guy that's talking about different types of stuff related to cards. I could do this. I could also set up a channel. So he wasn't the main driver, but he is a part of that cog that I think got a lot of people involved.
Yeah, I remember before I started doing videos, this was November of 2020. I remember I used to see Jeff Wilson videos all the time, your videos all the time. There are other channels out there, and I thought to myself, hey, I mean, you guys were putting yourselves out there. You have to be open to constructive criticism. Sometimes there will be haters, and I was like, hey, this is one of my hobbies. I need to find a way to distract myself, and this is a good thing. So it's like all you guys that provided content, helped me get through the pandemic, and now I'm doing it myself. So people are gonna hate on others. While I may not agree with Jeff Wilson's vision, I do believe he's trying to tell people what he's thinking. And there are some people that are two-faced and just completely lying. So I don't know, just about that. So there was a point in that video the other day saying that people are buying up followers. Do you believe that people are buying up followers on Instagram or YouTube? I mean, I thought you could get in big trouble for that, but there's no way
Um,
for me to prove that.
yeah, I assume that it probably does happen. But I don't have, and honestly, I don't really pay enough attention to accounts to see like, oh, this person had 1,000 followers and now they've got 100,000. That seems kind of weird. And I guess I just haven't seen anything outrageous to where I'm like, oh wow, that's strange how that particular channel got so big so fast. I mean, maybe it does happen. I don't spend a lot of time though thinking about that stuff, honestly. I mean, if Jeff's got 150,000 subscribers, look, he's got a whole team that's working, to put out that content. He travels around the country, he does card shows. He has a data tool. He has a website that's got all of his videos on. I mean, think about all the different pieces of the puzzle that he's got working. So I feel like if he has 150,000 subscribers, he's put in the work. And whether he's buying ads, if some of that's inorganic to get followers or whatever, maybe, but who cares? I guess it's like he's putting in the work and doing it, and he's got a whole team there that's working to put out that content. And whether we like it or don't like it, 150,000 subscribers is what he's got. So I mean, and if 10% of those are bots or whatever. I mean, I'm sure 10% of mine are bots, 10% of yours are bots or whatever. We all have, those, the
Yeah,
the
it's just
or whatever, I mean,
yeah, I'm getting inappropriate messages in
yeah,
Spanish. I'm like going to
yeah,
those websites.
same.
I'm like, I tried blocking it. I mean, those are the things that I'm going to block on my channel because I don't want people being subjective to, you know, that kind of material on my channel. But it happens all the time. But
I also think that we can't be upset too if someone is working, I guess, understands YouTube and working that algorithm better than me. I
yeah,
can't be upset at that. That means I probably need to step up my game and figure out how that all works. And for me though, this isn't my full-time job, so it's just a fun kind of side gig that I do. That's part of my hobby experience. So I do some work on that front to try to figure out keywords and stuff, but I'm not planning on hiring a team and all that stuff. And really, I'm not trying to get to, well, I mean, look, I'd love to have 1 million subscribers, but I guess my point is I'm not investing. I'm not hiring 10 people to help me get there.
okay. Thanks for confirming that you're not buying up the subscribers on Instagram
Yeah,
and
no,
YouTube.
I only have
That's
about,
what we wanted to hear.
yeah, I've got 2,000 or something. So I don't, yeah, I mean, I don't have, I
That
don't know.
many
I
on
feel like
Instagram.
people that buy them, they buy like 50,000, followers or something. Um, but yeah, I don't know. I'm not doing it.
Good to hear. Alrighty, the next topic that I will give key phrases of being positive versus being negative, and maybe even being objective.
Yeah, I think it's really important to be all of those things. I don't see how you can't be all of those things and really making, I think authentic content is kind of overused as far as I think the way that people are using that now. I don't know if I agree with. I guess being genuine. If you're being genuine about it, you have to, at the same time, you talk about awesome cards, but you have to also call out the shill bidding and call out some of the weird stuff that goes on in the hobby. And I think when people see that you talk about all the things, then they respect you more for it. They don't look at you as like, oh God, this guy's just like, snowed. He just thinks that everything is great all the time, or he doesn't think that everything's terrible all the time. It's a balance.
Yeah, I mean, people say that, hey, I'm negative and this and that. Yeah, I could see why people see that, and it's not good for the hobby. But a lot of people are coming into this sports card world to invest, flip, etc. And I showed some content before about an individual. I forgot his name. I think something Marks, and he talked about when you're investing, you need to be objective. And I just see a lot of people saying that if you're not positive, you're bad for the hobby, and that's not going to bring in the billionaire investors that could help propel this market higher. And I'm just looking at it from the fact that, look, we were going through this pandemic, and now after this pandemic, prices are probably going to come back to normal. And look, I mean, this is becoming more of a normalized market like in 2019. And speaking of all that, like, what do you think about what made the market go crazy? I know we were talking about before we came on that we touched base a little bit on finance topics, but like, what do you think? Why did cards go up like crazy a couple of years ago? Like, what's going on now? Do you agree with me on that?
Um, yeah, I mean, I do, it's kind of a pretty common argument to the effect of stimulus money came into the market, which really kind of moved up the lower to mid end, because the lower to mid end is really what suffered, I guess, over the last 12 months the most. You see the high end is starting to kind of, starting to drop. We can talk about that later. But yeah, I mean, the kind of that lower end to mid end, and then the combination of just everybody being home. I consider it a black swan event where just everything kind of worked, and then we talk about inflation, and just kind of the zero, the negative interest rate, environment. It all kind of worked together to make it all happen. But then I also do think there's a lot of people that just got back into the hobby that are 40 or whatever. I'm 41, about to turn 41. That got back in because they heard about it. They were home and had time. So I do think that was really the main crux of it. And when you look at historical data on cards, you see kind of a fairly flat line. You see some movement, but it's nothing like what you saw 2 years ago. So I think that it's hard to argue against those points.
All right. Honesty, I'll read this one comment. Ron Fig, honesty is sometimes negative, and if you avoid honesty because of money, you're selling your soul for a quick buck. Yeah, I agree with that. You know, there's some influencers and content creators that are just only focused on being really, really, really optimistic. And in my opinion, being really, really optimistic, you're not living in the real world, and you may be trying to pump or hype some products. Maybe that's not the intention. Maybe you just want the hobby to have green shoots but all the time, but that's not how markets work, in my opinion.
Well, and also I think if you differentiate between just being positive overall about cards and the hobby, but then also when you're talking about price points, those are two different things. So I feel like you can be really pumped about just cards. You love cards, you love collecting cards, but if you're talking about price points, there's so many different factors that are going to affect prices that, just being positive and making positive content is not going to keep prices high. There's so many other things that are going on.
Oh yeah, indeed. And I'm glad that other content creators are trying to be more objective, and I think that is good long term for the hobby, and for especially for those that are younger than us, that it's not always about Gary Vee and being positive. I think that helps in your own personal life and achieving your goals. There's no doubt about that. But just in terms of investing, speculating, etc., I don't think that's the right way to go.
And also going back to, when cards went up, let's just call it that, you go back to March 2020, the same thing happened in equities and in crypto. Look at where crypto was. Look at where stocks were.
Right.
Same, look at real estate. Look
Right.
what happened to real estate from March 2020 to today. I mean, and then all of these things are kind of moving in unison. Crypto is down. The stock market is, still up, but kind of come down a little bit. Collectibles have come down, but I mean, a lot of these things kind of move together. They're not the same. They're very different. We can talk about that too, but people act like it's just cards, and that's not really reality.
Yep. Rule number one, since we're talking about investing, by Will, minimize emotion. It'll always be there, and you must fight it. Yeah, indeed. That's
You
why
had
you
a
need
you had a guest on. I watched a live stream, one of your live streams, maybe like a month ago, and I can't remember the name of the guest, but
John. John, was it the snake oil one?
I think it was.
Yeah.
You had three guys on originally, and then one guy I think had to drop off
Yeah,
because,
yeah, the audio was, yeah, something was wrong with his internet.
and the other guy, he was, well, you guys were both making the same point, but it was a good point, and he was basically making the statement of, look, to be like a very good investor, you have to go against the grain all the time. You have to do unpopular things. You're buying into, stocks and different things, collectibles that people aren't really paying attention to. If you look at the people that have done so well in cards, they really were in cards before the boom, not during the boom.
Yeah,
They really got
exactly.
in, they were in early. That's it.
Yeah, yeah, I
Not to,
mean,
yeah, it's not to say, I mean, it's not to say that everything, it's like you can buy stuff that's down and it never goes up, but that's part of investing, is not just buying what's hot and FOMOing and, all that stuff to be good.
yeah, you have to basically buy things that are not that are quiet.
Quiet. Yeah,
Yes.
that's a good way to put it.
Yep.
Yeah.
In 2018, I know you said you got back into sports cards at that time, and same thing for me. I was slowly but steadily getting into cards, and I was just buying then weird stuff during the pandemic because people weren't going into it. Now those cards, have gone up, and I've gotten rid of pretty much about half of those or three-fourths of those. All righty, let's go through some comments and then we'll get into some other topics. Jose Prado, you have unlimited funds. What is your ultimate Grail card, Dustin?
Man, that's so hard because there's so many different cards that I like. And to be honest, I feel like I got this question too, maybe like 3 or 4 months ago, and I didn't have a good answer for it because I still feel like I'm getting back into where I'm still trying to figure out what that card would be. I haven't made a decision on what that ultimate Grail card is. So I don't just want to throw one out there. I like so many different cards, but I don't know if I've decided on an ultimate Grail yet. So I'm kind of a lame answer, but that's where I'm at.
Okay. Yeah, I think my Grail card, if I had, millions and millions of dollars, not caring about price, it would probably have to be the Tom Brady refractor card, which
Mm,
was dirt cheap in 2016. I wish I was into sports cards at that time. I would have bought it. What, $1,600 PSA 9, and now what's over $100,000 if the sales, are accurate. There's no show bidding, etc.
yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I remember a few years ago. if I paid $8,000 before pandemic, before the hype, for a PSA 7 on eBay, now is what, $50,000?
I know so
It,
much of that stuff.
yeah, I
I mean,
know.
if I was going to put money in, and now, granted, I wouldn't buy it now just because prices are so high, but the Tom Brady, the championship contenders auto that's now selling for millions, like if there was a modern card that I would want to put money into, not now, obviously, but that would be the one that ultimate, that Tom Brady contenders championship auto, PSA 10, now it's like $1 million card, multi-millions, but I guess if I hadn't just infinite money.
Yeah, indeed. Let's read some of the comments. Canton card collector, the card dollar box looks strong in the next 2 years. You were responding to Charles, which I had earlier. The dollar looks strong in the next few years. Well, not investment advice. If we do have the stock market crashing, maybe in 2024, 2025, like I've been saying, I think you may have temporary deflation, which makes the dollar strong in the short run. But that's just my opinion. All right, let's just go through some other comments. Ryan says people and companies were putting their money in other investments because traditional investments are not making enough to outperform inflation or at their jobs. That is true too. And not to mention, like Dustin, when the Federal Reserve prints all this monopoly money, it has to go somewhere. And we were stuck at home, and some businesses, weren't operating the same. So people just put into sports cards, put into real estate, like you said, put into equities. So,
Yeah.
and then if you're purely in for the money, it'd be better to invest in an index funds. Not giving investment advice, but yeah, I do that as well. Alrighty, so getting into the next topic. So I'm going to say shill bidding. What are your thoughts on my favorite topic?
I think it's a big issue. I think it's a big problem. And going back, I mean, this is not like a brand new thing. I think this is something over the last couple of years that has been an issue. I remember when Pokemon cards got really hot, a year ago or 15 months ago or whatever it was, when they really got hot. And looking on eBay, I was trying to make a video on recent sales, and I looked, and I swear every single, and I was like, oh, here's big sales. I was trying to make a video of like big Pokemon sales, and every single one of them were garbage. It was like it was an $8,000 Pokemon sale, and it was zero feedback. Just didn't, like, none of it looked right. I'm like, I swear, it just looks like the whole thing just looks like a mess. And not to say that I know that there's rare Pokemon stuff that's expensive, but um, I think it's a big problem. Shill bidding. I don't know how they're going to figure it out. I think the big thing, and you've talked about this on your channel as well, a big problem with collectibles in comparison to even crypto is the volume of transactions. That's the real problem, because even in crypto, and I know crypto still needs to be regulated in certain parts and this and that and whatever, but you can move in and out of that stuff. It's very liquid. There's, you're buying in and out of millions of shares or whatever of crypto. Same thing with equities. You're moving in and out. But with collectibles, you have very few sales. So when you're looking at comps and you're trying to negotiate comps, man, that is really difficult on, and I'm not even just talking about rare stuff, but you look at like Patrick Mahomes PSA 10 or PSA 9 rookie card. That's a fairly common card in the hobby. It's not a super rare card, but even that card, it's shilled, and there's issues, with it, to where it's like, are you confident buying that card? I'm not. And going back, you probably remember this too. I remember that card, that PSA 10. I remember it being a $350 card, fall of 2019. And I was too
Oh
cheap.
yeah, I remember that video that you did.
Yeah, I was too cheap back then. I was buying nines for $140, which is still good. But I remember just thinking, like, I can't spend $350 on a prospect like Mahomes. I
Right,
can't.
right.
And now it's like, holy smokes. But anyway,
Yeah, I mean, I was doing videos on shill bidding like for a while. I mean, like I just did it for a week. Once I saw the zero cool, I was ticked off that no one was talking about it. But I kept on doing it, and I did videos on Mahomes. I saw that Neo did a video about Mahomes, and then I just kept on looking at it further and further and further. And you were talking about that Pokemon. Was that last year? You said over a year ago.
it was over a year ago.
It
It
was over.
was it might have been 18 months ago. And I'm talking like right when this is before like Sasha T, $500,000 Charizard.
Okay, this is
This is
before all
before
of
all
that.
that. It was leading up to it. It was kind of like as that boom was happening.
Yeah.
And I was trying to make a video on top sales, and I just couldn't put together a video that I felt confident. Like all the eBay sales just look like junk.
Yeah. Yeah, that indeed is the case. But yeah, people were telling me in the comment section, hey, look, you're worried about all the shill bidding, but if you go back to what, 20, like even a decade ago, like all this hanky panky was going on at Mastro Auctions, which was based out of Chicagoland, the suburbs. So if it was going on then, it's hard to see the bid history of some of these private auctions. Then, and right now the market, in my opinion, is a bit more fragile. Then I'm just thinking out loud, like what's going on at some of these other bigger auctions. I'm not accusing anyone of anything, by the way, but I'm just thinking, okay, eBay, we could definitely tell there's stuff going on, right? You agree with me, I agree with you. A lot of people are saying that. Even Probstein has said that in interviews. Then I'm just thinking, are some of these sales at the big auction houses, like, should we believe them? That's just the thing that I'm thinking about loud. Like, I would not be, if I had money, I would not be chasing these high end cars, but who knows?
Yeah, and I do think, I mean, I think there's tons of legitimate sales. I do think there's tons of big money that's pouring into cards. But the thing that, this was, I don't want to dive too deep because it'll get us off topic, but
Yeah.
this is kind of an issue that you have right now in the graded video game space, because you had basically monster sales on stuff that were, some of it was paid for legitimate, and then some of it was, there's question marks about it. Like, are we just trying to get high sales into the news media, to prop up a particular collectibles market? And so that's where, and I like that graded video game market. I think that's here to stay. I think there is kind of a long-term play for that. But flipping them, no. And I'm only buying, it's funny because all the video, like they're all vintage video games. I grew up with like original NES, and that's considered to be vintage video games, which I think is hilarious. But I'm not buying modern stuff. But with all these collectibles categories, they're being looked at a lot closer now, with shill bids and different things. Whereas 2 years ago, I don't really know if people were looking at it as closely.
Yeah, I think people were making money hand over fist, so people ignored that topic. Now the market has declined. Now people are being like, they're more scrutinizing more of the sales. And I had some cards that I consigned, like the Mayweather BGS 95. People, they didn't pay for it twice. So I'm like, okay, that's shill, right? Because someone bought it at $15,000 over a year ago. And I still made money on it, but like my first sale, what, $5,500 or something like that, turned into what, $4,400. Finally sold. But yeah, I mean, I noticed it there, but now I just think in the next few years we're going to see probably more of this until the market completely bottoms out. I don't know if you see it that way. I mean, there still will be shill bidding, but not to that extent.
The one thing I thought was really interesting that Probstein said in that recent interview was what he sees, and not that it's like he said his people aren't doing anything on his end as far as shill bidding goes.
Yeah.
But the one thing he said that was really interesting was he was saying that investors or collectors, whatever, are bidding up to about 70-80% of recent comps to protect their price. So if they've got, certain cards, and they see that bid is low, they'll basically bid it up to 70-80% and then just stop there. So they're okay if it sells at 70-80% and they have to buy that card, then they'll buy it. But I think the thought is that, oh, well, somebody else will beat my bid. Now, how many of those people are non-payers? I want to know, like, what percentage of those people that bid up to 70-80% actually pay for the card, and how many are non-payers? Because that to me, that's a very important statistic. I don't think we're ever going to know exactly what that is. I guess that would be a nice, like, for the data tools out there, if you could figure that out, that would be very helpful, because, that would tell you how many people are actually, they're just buying more of what they've already got, or how many of them are just bidding up to protect, and then they get out and then they just don't pay for that eBay auction or whatever.
Yeah. What do you think eBay should do?
I don't really know. I mean, if you look at eBay, though, with the authentication, whether you like the authentication through CSG or you don't like it, that is a move in that direction of trying to protect, buyers, sellers, etc. So, maybe eBay is taking a harder stance on it now. I don't really know. I mean, look, there's a lot of eyeballs on it now that are paying attention to eBay for cards and collectibles and all these things. I feel like there's never been more pressure on eBay and auction houses to figure out shill bidding. I don't know if there is a way to do it, but I feel like the pressure has never been more than there is now. I mean, I don't know if you agree with that or not, but
Yeah, the way that I look at it is that, look, if eBay doesn't get a hold of it, then it takes them less time. It'll take them more time to get money, and that hurts their bottom line. And then people could go to alternative platforms, like you've mentioned in your videos, and I've talked about. If there's other options and they're better in dealing with this, then they're going to lose business. So, I think they could be making a huge mistake by not getting a hold of it.
yeah, and I think too, I wonder if that is a big reason for the pivot to the vault. Because if you think about it, if their goal is to move more towards like a ComC style, where it's just you make offers and it's buy it now mainly, and that you're getting rid of kind of that auction piece, and you're just doing a lot more vault transactions, maybe that's part of the pressure to do that. I don't know.
Yep. Alrighty. Now I'm going to get into this new topic, pump and dump. What are your first thoughts when you hear that phrase?
So I
My
think
favorite topic.
we might disagree on this a little bit.
Okay.
I'm gonna, yeah, and not wholly. Of course, I'm not a fan of pumping and dumping, but and tell me if I'm wrong on this. But when I've watched some of your videos and you talk about pumpers, not necessarily pumping and dumping,
Yeah.
but just pumpers. I don't necessarily have an issue with pumping category. So in general, when someone is talking just as sports cards as a whole, to me, I don't see how that's really any different than someone saying I'm bullish on stocks as a whole. If they're saying like it's different if you're talking very, very specific and nuanced, in my opinion. And then on the back end, maybe you're trying to sell. So you're like, I'm excited about this stock while you're trying to sell it. That's different. Or collectibles. It's like, oh, I'm really excited about this particular card while you're trying to sell it on the back end. Obviously, don't like that. But I'm not really as, if someone is saying, I really love a particular category or even a type of card, I'm bullish on vintage cards. I love vintage baseball cards. To me, I don't see how that's any different than even if you look at regulated categories like equities. Warren Buffett goes on and he's in an interview and he's talking about how Coca-Cola is an amazing company and he drinks 8 Cokes a day. I mean, technically he's pumping. I don't know if he's selling on the back end or whatever, probably not, but I don't necessarily have an issue with the pump part. If it's people just talking about what they're buying because they're excited about it, or if they're investing in it, I don't have as much of an issue there with just the generalities of it.
So the way that I look at it is I'm looking at from the equity space. I've followed, all types of investments, big cap stocks like Coca-Cola, like you're saying. But I have followed alternative investments and the people involved in that space over a decade ago. And there was clearly pumping and dumping with this small group. I think Charles may know about this. There were these guys at, I believe, NIA, and Peter Schiff had accused them of being involved in some pump and dump scheme because this one guy, Jonathan Lebed, he was over 20 some years ago, he was on internet chat forums and he was just, hyping these penny stocks. And on the back end, he was just selling them, right? And as you know, penny stocks are not, there's low volume compared to
Oh,
stocks like Coca-Cola.
absolutely.
Yeah,
It's like Safe Moon crypto or whatever. Like, if you can have a crypto that's worth, 0.00001, like less than a penny stock,
right.
and if you just get a little bit of movement on that crypto, or that penny stock, like what you're saying. Yeah, no, I totally agree with you.
Yeah.
That's a problem. I mean, that's the whole Jordan Belfort thing,
Yeah,
the
yeah,
Wolf
yeah,
of Wall Street.
exactly. And I'm just looking at it that, look, collectibles have low volume.
Yes.
So, and I could compare what Lebed did in what the late 90s to what people here on YouTube are doing, where they're just hyping, and then on the back end they're trying to unload it and they're not, making those intentions clear, or then making some comments saying, "Hey, I'm trying to sell to the community. I'm all about the community." But in reality, they're all in it for themselves and just lying about the not comps, but just trying to mislead people. And people have messaged me over a month ago, when some of these videos were coming out, and you're well aware of them. People were messaging me about all of these shady things and certain influencers. I'm not going to get into that particularly here, but I just have a lot more information than I did just a month ago. And, people may say I'm talking generalities. Like I have, exact proof of what some of these guys are doing. It's just not, in the public's eye. So
Yeah.
that's what I'm talking about. It's just that, hey, you could get a lot of people to talk about maybe a liquid asset like Apple, right? You can't pump and dump Apple, right? Um, that's just impossible. But when it comes to these stocks with not stock collectibles with low volume, I think that's the problem.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, we can't move Apple. I guess
yeah,
if you're Warren Buffett, you can move Apple. But yeah, you're right. The retail investor, the average Joe is not moving Apple.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Yeah,
Yeah, and
like
I think that exactly what you said, I think you run into a little bit of an issue. Not, I mean, if you are if you're a dealer and you're also a big time content creator, those are two things that are interesting. That's a tough dynamic because you're talking about what you like, you're also talking about what you're selling. And so that can get a little tricky, especially with niche markets within cards.
right. Yeah. And I don't know if you know this one individual on Instagram, P Ryan Collection. Have you heard of him?
I think I've heard of it.
Yeah.
I don't know though.
Yeah, he has like he's big in I think it's the ticket consulting business, and he's good friends with Darren Ravel. He sometimes, links to some of my videos in his stories. But he was talking about how the feds, the FBI is looking into individuals. It may be more in the fractional space, and it could be in crypto too, where they're just hyping it up like crazy. Oh, good investment, great investment. Then, since it's low volume, and they figured, hey, we could just dump it, and they weren't telling their uh, audience. I mean, that's where the FBI may start to get involved. And people say, oh, the FBI doesn't do anything, but they may try to nab some people, like with Operation Ballpark in the 1990s,
Sure.
and with Mastro. So, that's what I talk about, pumping and dumping. There is a lot of hyping. So, even though I say they're pumping, right? It's synonymous with hyping, but I do believe there is that dump factor as well, and some shady behavior from some of these influencers, in my opinion. But
I think the FBI is probably so busy with counterfeit and fakes and all that stuff. Not to say that you're wrong. I agree with you, but I just think that the counterfeit problem and the fake slabs, and I don't think that's going to go away anytime soon. I think that they're going to be busy with those cases, and they have been. I mean, sports memorabilia fakes, that's been an issue for a long time. And so I know they're going to be busy with that stuff.
yeah, I think the other challenging part is to get people to snitch on someone else. I think that's how they were able to get Mastro, and that's how they were able to crack down on Operation Ballpark. Sometimes someone may not want to, open their mouth, right, for obvious reasons, but then there will be people that just snitch, and then the FBI says, "Hey, we're not gonna make you guilty," or something like that. All the charges will be dropped. And that's when people speak. So if they have something like that, then, that could definitely happen. All right. This is a question. I think, Brandon, you asked this yesterday, but is Dustin Sergeant at Arms in the SAIH Army?
Yeah, no, I like Raul does get, you get some flack for, you're coming out and, well, people say that you're negative. I've seen that. Like, you're a little bit on the negative side. The thing that I like about your channel though, is you're talking about a lot of the big picture stuff that frankly, just a lot of card people are not talking about whatsoever. So when you're looking at card prices moving up and down and different things going on in the hobby, a lot of it is very surface with some of the card folks, especially industry people that are involved, that are on the industry side that own companies. They're, it's very kind of it's a narrow vision. And so I like your channel because it does kind of fuse the big picture finance stuff and collectibles together. And I think that's really important. I think it's needed.
Yeah, thanks for saying that. Sometimes I do come across as a bit more cynical than others, but a lot of people are very, very optimistic. So I try to even the
But
vote
you're
out.
also you also the one thing I like though is you're backing it up with, treasury data. You're backing it up with different charts that you're seeing, and you're talking about why you think that. It's not just you going on and just blabbing about the upcoming recession without having any sort of data to back it up, or at least something to kind of to aid in your argument. It's not because there's a lot of people out there that's like everything's going to hell. Like there's a lot of people talking like that, but they don't give any sort of reasoning why that is. And that's why I like you. You kind of, you tie it together.
Yeah. Yeah, thanks for saying that. I know we have about 10 minutes, but speaking of coming recession, and you mentioned earlier, we could talk about the high-end card market and also card markets dipping in general. So you mentioned that sports cards on the high end are going down. Like, what more do you want to say about that? And maybe does it have to do, in your opinion, with the Federal Reserve? Does it have to deal with us returning to more of a normalized market? Like, what are your thoughts about that?
Yeah, I mean, I think part of the issue is that anytime you see something move up at the meteoric pace that we saw it move up, I think that there is a false notion that high end stuff can't go down. The problem is that there is, if you're looking at collectibles, there's a lot of rare high end things. I mean, it's not like, the Honus Wagner card is an example, but now you have all sorts of things that are in that high end bucket that maybe shouldn't be there, or maybe won't stay there. If you're looking at even Michael Jordan autos for certain things, or Kobe Bryant autos, people will argue that is very, those are very scarce, but the reality is Michael Jordan has signed a fair amount of stuff. It's out there I use Beckett.com. I know people kind of rag on me sometimes like, oh, it's not completely accurate, but Beckett.com keeps a database of pack pulled auto cards. So not stuff that they've signed in person, but just, it's the manufacturer has made a card with an autograph on it, and it'll tell you how many cards a player has. So you can go on Beckett.com, you can search Michael Jordan, you can search Kobe, LeBron James, whatever, and it'll say that particular person has 1,000 cards or 1,500 cards or whatever. But the main point is that you have, these things are not mega scarce. I can understand why a green PMG Michael Jordan 97 metal goes for what it goes for. There was 10 of them printed. Makes sense. Okay, I get that. But when you get into some of the other stuff, it's you talk about fragility. I've heard you say, fragile parts of the market. To me, on the high end, there's a lot of really cool things on the high end. I don't know if all that stuff is going to stay high end. I think some of that stuff probably belongs middle tier, or, I think that middle tier is pretty big. So that's the thing I'm going to watch for, especially too, when you look at fractional buys, fractional companies, what did they buy it for? And then also what was the markup on that particular collectible? What are you buying in at that price point? I guess there's certain things I think, oh, that's a good value based on what they paid for it. But if a fractional company bought something in 2021, did they get it at a good price? Or even if it's not fractional, it's a high end seller, and they bought it in 2021, was it a good price? I don't subscribe to the idea that high end can't go down. I don't believe that.
Yeah, and I don't buy the notion that if people are negative that that will stop the high end from going up. I
Mhm.
believe it has to deal with just basic economics that I talked about. I just looked at what happened in the 1990s, and I saw the Federal Reserve, I think it was with the bond crash of what 1994, where the Fed raised what the Fed funds rate from 2% to 5% within 1 year, and also you had a baseball strike as well, and all the sports cards happened to go down. And if you're looking at what's going on in 2022, we've had what the first rate hike in the what past few years, I believe, and they want to raise it what 5, 6 times. I don't think they're going to raise it that many times, but they
Yeah.
could. And we're at the point where I'm just looking at the 10-year tips. I saw you commented on that. I mean, that's becoming positive. I mean, we still have negative rates on the short end of the curve, right? The Fed funds rate is what, 25 basis points, I believe, and the inflation is ridiculous. So it's negative there, but I'm looking from a long-term perspective. And when I see this, I want to, if I want to get money and I need the money right away from some of these high-end cars, then I want to, get rid of them. But, if I'm a long-term speculator, then, I can afford to hold on as long as the cost basis isn't, that high.
Yeah,
But
my struggle with everything right now is, you know, and I agree with you. I do think there's some form of recession coming. It's just how bad is it going to be? Is it going to be the 70s, where they really hike up rates? How long will it last? And then I guess the struggle is I want to have cash ready. I mean, look, if there is some sort of a crash, and maybe whether it lasts for 3 months, 6 months, a year, or 5 years, I want to be cash ready, for the drop in asset prices, so there might be stuff that's way out of my range here. That's a high end sports card that might be within range in a couple of years, depending on what happens. And so doing that balancing act of, I still am buying cards. I bought a card a couple of days ago. I still am buying cards, but same goes for equities or real estate or anything else. If there's a massive, drop in equity, I mean, look at, subprime mortgage crash. The Dow was at 5,500. It was at 5,500, so it's not like that can't happen again. I don't think it will happen to where it goes down that far. But the point is, if the Dow drops down to 15, 10, 15, I want to be getting in. I want to be moving into that stuff. So
yeah,
that's doing that dance. And I've got, like a lot of people, I've got index funds, and I've also got, I've got a E-Trade account where I'm buying individual stocks, and then I've got collectibles that I'm doing as well. So, and then I've got crypto stuff, so trying to figure out where we're moving capital in and out, that's always, and that's fun. I mean, that's really fun. But right now I think there's a bit of a little bit of a hold on people diving into any one thing, because we're all kind of holding our breath, or a lot of people are, for that next, step.
yeah, indeed. Yeah, I want to read this comment by C&T Collectibles. It's a nice channel. Guys should definitely subscribe to him, by the way. But recession calls, crash calls, those are easy. Getting the timing right, that's what counts. I definitely agree with you on that. And the thing is that, I looked at various indicators, the yield curve, the 7 versus the 10. I believe that's, I think, flat right now or inverted. That's like what, 2 years from now, we should be expecting some sort of recession. I'm looking at other yield curves. I think I saw earlier the swap spreads were inverted, euro dollar futures, which nobody looks at, maybe a few other people, maybe Robert Kiyosaki and some other economists that I follow. But that's inverted what, Q3 of what, 2023. And I think I was talking about this in 2021. So I expect something really nasty to happen 2024, 2025, around that time frame. I'm still bullish on the stock market if it's gone down. I'm still buying some cards here and there. But it's not, I'm not being aggressive. I was very aggressive in 2020 when I wasn't on YouTube, by the way. And people say, hey, you're cheap. There's a time to be
Yeah.
aggressive, like you said, and a time, to be, a bit more cautious. I'm a bit more cautious, but that doesn't mean I'm going to stop buying. I'm always going to buy. But yeah.
Well, and to what Will is saying here about market timing is mostly a fool's errand. And I do agree with that. And that's why you have, 401k, or you've got, I've got certain, I'm putting money into stocks all the time. Yeah, I'm putting money into the index funds all the time. I'm paying on, my mortgage, I'm paying towards real estate all the time, so there is kind of that, not trying to time the market, but then there's also kind of that bucket where it's kind of fun to try to time it a little bit, to some degree.
Yeah, I'm just saying, like, look, our economy, in my opinion, is very fragile. I think in the 80s and 90s, even though the Fed intervened all this time, you could go back to long-term capital management in the late 90s, crash of 87. Our economy, I still felt was strong, just looking back at it, even though I was younger. Right now, it's just what they've been printing money, and then 2020 is probably the most chaotic year in my lifetime. I listen to older people like Michael Savage. I don't know if you've heard of him, but he's a lot
Yep.
older.
Yep.
And he said that, this was the craziest year of his life. So I'm just looking at, okay, people are losing confidence in the system. That's why I'm thinking the next few decades are going to be a bit more challenging. That doesn't mean that you should be full of despair. It's just you got to be objective, like I keep on telling people,
Well, and
and be prepared.
what's different too now, if you're going back to the 70s, which would be, I guess, as far as I know, and correct me if I'm wrong, but the last time there was major, rate increases to battle against inflation, if we're talking where it was a serious problem going back to the 70s, we didn't have $30 trillion in debt or anything even close to it back then. So it wasn't even, if you're looking at the dollar, the value of a dollar over time, we didn't have $30 trillion or the equivalent of that in the 70s when we were doing that. So I think that's also a factor too, because, would they have done it back then if we had a ton of debt? Because of course, when you raise the rates, you raise the rate on your debt, so would they have done it? And can we do it now? And that dance is going to be interesting.
Yeah, I mean, there's a few other things. I know you have a hard stop at 8 o'clock, but it just
I
looks
wish we could
like,
keep going. We'll have to do this again. Maybe I'll just have you back on mine and we'll.
yeah, I mean, we could talk about like other things too, but I mean, look at it. China is knocking on the door, and it looks like, you know, there's a conflict between the United States and China. Hopefully, nothing becomes like, last century with war.
Right.
But with the Thucydides trap, you know, there was one with the Soviet Union. Not, I mean, luckily nothing bad came out of it. But now, America is fragile. It's not as strong as it was 30 years ago. And I want to be optimistic. I still think we could, make something of what I believe is going to be tough times. But I think we should be prepared, in my opinion.
Yeah, and I think the way that I try to operate day to day is just preparing myself for a depression, preparing for the worst, preparing for it to get really, really bad. And that way, if it doesn't get really, really bad, then great. But if it does, then at least we're kind of prepared somewhat.
Indeed. Alrighty. I know it's close to what 9 p.m. your time, 8 p.m. My time. But anyways, Dustin, thanks for coming on. I appreciate it. We'll definitely talk sometime in the near future, maybe on your stream or my stream. But this was
Yeah, man.
definitely a good conversation, and I appreciate you coming on, man. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, guys.
Thank you all.